Well, the Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott joins me now. Very good evening to you. Well, there's no doubt the reduction in police numbers occurred on Theresa May's watch. Can you clear up for us what the official Labour Party position is? Your leader seemed to suggest he wanted her to resign today and then row back a bit. What is it?
No, our position is that in 2 days' time, on Thursday, the British people will have the opportunity to force her resignation by voting Labour in the general election. That is our position.
But 3 terror attacks as well in the last 2 months. Is that not grounds for calling for her resignation?
We think this can be resolved at the general election, but it is a fact that we've had 3 terror attacks in 3 months, and now people are finally focusing on the cuts in police officers, which all occurred on her watch. She has a way in the past 24 hours of talking about the problems as if she hasn't been Home Secretary for 6 years. This comes back to her.
But are you sure that the reduction in numbers then leads to the greater likelihood of a terror attack?
No, I'm not saying it leads to the greater likelihood of a terror attack, but in terms of the investigations and finding out what's going to happen, the reduction in numbers has meant there are less community police officers, and it is community policing which gives you the links to the community so you can actually find out what is really going on.
OK, so you've got 10,000 more police officers coming on stream. How many of them will be involved specifically in community policing aimed at Muslim communities?
Well, I don't know about being aimed at Muslim communities, but they definitely will all be community police officers.
The 10,000 community police officers then?
10,000 community officers up and down the country. In
so
England
no
and
more
Wales.
detective inspectors, no increase at any other level, just with community police?
We're starting with community policing because we think
Well, sorry, is that all the 10,000 or some of them?
We're starting with 10,000 community police officers because we think that helps make people safe and will help to fight terrorism and other forms of crime. But that is not to say...
And can I just be here, they're sworn officers, are they? They're not community police support officers?
No, these are sworn officers. 10,000 sworn officers in every ward in the country. And we think that's the beginning of making the British people feel safe. And we think Theresa May should be embarrassed that numbers dropped
But what
on
role
her
will they
watch.
have? What role will they have in the communities they go into looking for terrorists, chatting to them, or will they act then as the eyes and ears of the security services and the other forces, the anti-terror police, who have to come in and arrest them?
Their initial role will be to make those important links with the community. It's concerning, both in Manchester and in London Bridge, that members of the community said they tried to warn the police about their concerns about some of these individuals.
Well, they rang an anti-terror hotline.
And somehow nothing happened.
Well, it wouldn't have been community police, though. I mean, the community police are going around having a cup of tea in the mosque or something,
I
aren't they?
think that everybody... all the stakeholders in community policing know they play a very important role in building links between the community and the police.
Because that linking in the community, Jeremy Corbyn was quoted as having said something very interesting in 2014, that he had been speaking to people who were attracted to what ISIS is doing. I mean, it's a way of understanding the ideology. Have you done that?
No. No, because...
Don't you want to understand what motivates these young men and women?
Everyone that I speak to is completely horrified and disgusted by these terror attacks.
But there's no doubt there's an ideology there, isn't there? Isn't it worth talking to them, as Jeremy Corbyn says he's done, and trying to find out what motivates them?
I have a Muslim community in Hackney, but they are all horrified by these attacks.
Let me ask you about these attacks, because I revisited, as I'm sure you have recently, the Lord Harris inquiry, the recommendations that he made to Sadiq Khan about preparedness in London for a terror attack. Do you think some of the things he said in there were prescient and should be acted on? They haven't been acted on yet.
I think we do need to revisit that report because... and we do need
Which part of it?
Well, I just think it's about preparedness and resilience.
But he made some very specific recommendations that haven't been acted on. Do you know what they are?
Well, he was talking about preparedness and resilience, and I do think that we need to act not necessarily on every specific recommendation.
But you remember the report came out only in October 2016. The mayor, the newly elected mayor, commissioned it. It came out in October 2016, and Lord Toby Harris had some bullet points. That's what I've read through. I mean, what did you make of those? The specifics?
I thought, because I know Toby Harris, he's a very
absolutely
long-standing London
very thorough-blown
politician.
inquiry, I must say, and review.
I thought it was an important review, and I think we should act on it, but obviously working with stakeholders.
But what should we act on? I mean, you know, what do you think of the recommendations about the various police forces in London?
You mean the idea that they should work more closely together?
Well, he suggested they should amalgamate.
Well, I think that's an interesting idea, but I think you'd find resistance in some parts of London to the amalgamation.
Have you actually read the report?
I have.
Okay, what about when you talk about, what about the physical resilience? Again, I'm referring to this because it seemed prescient.
Yes, I mean, I think physical resilience is important. I think that...
But there was a specific aspect of physical resilience.
Well, I think that physical resilience is important.
Yes, well, I mean, but the specific aspect was he talked about putting up more barriers in the light of the Nice attacks. He mentioned that in October 2016.
Yes, we're now putting up barriers on bridges, and you'd think we might have done that before, particularly after what happened on Westminster Bridge. But now, in the past few days, we've been putting up barriers on bridges.
So would you recommend putting up barriers around more public spaces? For instance, you know, there are many spaces, even just in London, where people gather. Do you think around parks, around Covent Garden, around places like that?
Well, certainly in Westminster, which is where I work, there's been a lot more barriers and bollards to protect us from terrorism, and I think we need to consider that for other places in central London.
Is it true, just after our exchange there on the Harris report, is it true that Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell's team have been trying to keep you off the airwaves?
No, that's why I'm here this evening.
Well, you said that you book your own appearances, that you don't run them through the leader's office.
No. We work very closely with the press office.
But they regard you, that the two Js regard you as a bit of a liability after your brain fade on police costume.
I'm here. I've just come from doing another media interview. I'm going on to do another media interview. There's no truth in the idea that I'm not in the media, particularly talking about what happened
but you're not,
on London Bridge.
You think you're an asset, clearly, not a liability to the front bench.
I think I'm Shadow Home Secretary, and it'd be very strange if the Shadow Home Secretary wasn't doing interviews like this.
And you think that in 3-4 days' time you will be the Home Secretary?
I think the most important thing is that in 3 or 4 days' time we actually win the general election, and then Jeremy will choose his cabinet. OK, hope to talk to you on Friday. Shadow Home Secretary, thank you very much indeed, Diane Abbott there. Well, let's get more on that row. Actually, I do just want to pause because we're going on to it now, and I forgot to ask you this, about the row between Donald Trump and Sadiq Khan. Do you think that the state visit offer should be cancelled for Donald Trump? There are many people who didn't think the state visit offer wasn't appropriate. But it's been issued by the Queen. It's very difficult to revoke. Well, it will be a matter for the palace, what happens by that offer. But I think most Londoners are disgusted by the offensive way that Donald Trump has chosen to talk about our mayor, who's offered such great leadership at this time. OK, Diane Abbott, thank you very much indeed.